Hello, this is Hamlet, and this is my Proving Grounds Tank Silver Guide for level 100. In Proving Grounds Tank, just like in the other two, you'll be in this circular room, and you're going to have one friend, Sakari the Mistweaver, standing at the center of the room, who heals you and damages all the mobs. There will also be 8 barriers that you can use to block movement for certain purposes. Your goal is simply to pick up all the mobs that continually run at Sakari and keep them off her without dying yourself or letting her die. The mobs spawn in alternatingly from this spot you just saw and another one on the opposite side of the entrance. So the first wave is 2 ordinary melee mobs to give you a sense of what you're doing. 2 rippers, a small and a large, and as I said, you just pick them up at any point on the way in towards Sakari and start tanking them. You don't have to do much else in wave 1. One important note on tank proving grounds is that your DPS is not emphasized at all, especially at the silver level. I'm not showing a damage meter here, but Sakari does the vast majority of the damage. You can make a small difference, but your focus is to use your resources to pick up mobs efficiently and keep yourself alive and use your active mitigation well. The second wave is a large pack of rabbits. They're small mobs that melee you and apply a stacking chomp debuff. The damage can start to build up a lot if the dot stacks up high. I used a stun here. You can use a minor cooldown, stun, or other way of resetting it or reducing the damage on you as the wave is ending. But it's mostly a challenge of whether you can do an AoE pickup correctly as they're running in. Wave 3 is going to introduce the first caster mob, the Flamecaller. There are a lot of these throughout the silver waves. I missed the Ripper for a second there, and as you can see, it's not that scary. You just pull it off Sakari and get it back to where you want to be. The Flamecaller continually casts. It's actually not a big deal if it hits Sakari occasionally, but at some point you want to find a time to taunt it, interrupt it, do whatever you're going to do with it. Oftentimes that can be after you handle picking up and positioning the other mobs. If you see all this fire scattered around the room, it applies a stacking dot and damage taken debuff to anyone standing in it, you or an enemy. So you saw me positioning the Ripper in there and then eventually positioning the Flamecaller itself in it in order to do that more quickly. Wave 4 is just wave 2 plus a large Flamecaller. This is a large Flamecaller, so the Pyroblasts it casts do somewhat more significant damage, but still not scary or anything to worry about if you hit Sakari. Worry about doing the AoE pickup, move them into fire if there's convenient fire, and then handle the Flamecaller however you like. Usually you can run over, you want to use an interrupt on it, something that'll get it to move. In my case I have Death Grip, you can also use that to get it to move. Moving it into fire is ideal, but otherwise it's basically a task of getting to it, interrupting it as much as possible to keep damage down, and then keeping it on you while Sakari damages it. This wave is pretty similar to basic melee mobs at the start, just 2 small Rippers and only a small Flamecaller. It's an easy wave to start, but a few seconds after you start, once you have everything set up, a pack of rabbits will spawn. There they are coming in. So you can either be waiting here for them or planning to use something, depending on your class, to pick them up as they run in. And if there's convenient fire to get them into, you can do that. I didn't entirely here, and I wound up laying down my stun while they were out of fire. It's not a big deal. Getting them all stuck in fire after you pick up the rabbits in addition to the Rippers will make the pack end more quickly. I barely even worried about the small Flamecaller here. Sakari took it down on her own while I was picking up and positioning all the melee mobs. Wave 6 is going to introduce a new kind of mob, the Windguard. It's a hard-hitting melee mob, and it has the ability to periodically knock you back, and when it does that, it also drops threat on you and runs at Sakari. There are 2 basic ways to handle that. One is to get knocked back into a barrier, the other is to get knocked back towards Sakari. Either way, you wind up not being too far away from the mob after it runs to Sakari, and you can taunt it right away. Keeping the Windguard targeted can help, and then whenever it knocks you back and targets to Sakari, you can just mash taunt right away, and you don't have to worry about finding the nameplate, retargeting, and that kind of stuff, especially if you're not too used to it. This Wave 6 existed mostly for the purpose of introducing the Windguard. Once it's down, you just have an ordinary small Ripper left that will die as or just after the wave ends. Wave 7 combines the two interesting mob types we've seen so far, the Windguard and the Flamecaller, and throws in a basic melee Ripper. As usual, collect the two melee mobs on their way into Sakari and get them under control, ideally positioned in fire, although with a Windguard there you can't keep them in place indefinitely. The Flamecaller getting a few shots on Sakari while you do that is still not a problem. Start handling it whenever you have a free moment, and do your best to get the mobs positioned in fire once again, and then simply tank them while you wait for Sakari to kill them. Use whatever interrupts or other damage reduction you have against the Flamecaller's fireballs, and you won't take very much damage. Windguards do a reasonable amount of melee DPS, but it's not too scary while it's on its own. If you were able to get things positioned into fire pretty well, you will have a nice break at the end of this wave to get set up for wave 8, which is helpful because then Sakari's hots will tick up and top off both you and her as you're starting. As with all of the Silver Proving Grounds, Wave 8 is a bit of a test combining everything you've seen so far. It starts with a Windguard and a pack of Foragers over on the right, and then a few seconds later there will be a Ripper and a Flamecaller on the left, and then you'll be done. You can use whatever big cooldowns you have here. You may have seen I didn't use too many earlier in this run. You want to save one for Wave 8. You can use others earlier. You can also use a big cooldown early in Wave 5 and have it come up again during Wave 8. Here I used Army, which may have caused more trouble than it was worth, as you can see with everything running around, but the basic concept is that you just pick up the melee mobs, get them under control, handle the Windguard for a little while, and then be ready to pick up that Ripper and this Flamecaller coming in on the left when it's time. The Flamecaller is large, which means you do want to try to interrupt it or use defensive cooldowns such as my AMS when possible to keep down the incoming damage, and either get it into fire if you have a way of doing that, interrupting it and moving it, or do your best to keep on it and interrupt it as much as you can to keep its damage down until it dies. None of the other mobs are too scary here. The Ripper or the Foragers will just stay on you the whole time, and the Windguard will die early in the wave. Once the last mob dies, then you are done with Tank Proving Ground Silver, and you will have your achievement, and you will be able to queue for Heroic LFD Dungeons as a tank. Congratulations, and have fun.